looks like. Yep. Now that we're done catching up. Okay, yeah, just let me know when you're ready.
Is that the old RFP?
This is the one from the. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 5:02. The committee's here. I've got our agenda. It's just, I think it's here somewhere. Oh, where did I put the agenda? Wait, I can pull it up. Thought I had it.
I have a copy right here.
I've got it right here. I mean, I brought my thumb drive that has all of my stuff on it just for this purpose. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. The only thing I would say, the only amendment to the agenda would be we do not have minutes for the August 9th meeting. So we'll go ahead and remove that. But with that as the only change, can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make motion approved.
Thank you.
A second.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so Bill, can you hear us okay? Okay. So now we're on to our discussion for the next RFP. You know, I think I kind of skimmed back over the one that we did 3 years ago. Well, not quite 3 years ago. And I didn't see any major things in it, but Bernie, you and I were talking a little bit before the meeting and you had some possible thoughts.
Right. The only thing I think, because we heard the presentation, we liked was Colin Resnick had the ability to deal with the IT infrastructure, and they had a range they could go after.
Right.
So we should put something in there this time to have that also.
Okay. Would you want to draft something?
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Okay, that'd be great. So, anybody else have any thoughts reviewing the one RFP that we did?
I didn't look at it
Okay,
since we
came
back. I can
Okay.
pull it up.
That's okay.
But I remember
I
we
right
got
here.
a fair number of respondents.
I feel like six,
Yeah,
five or
five or
six,
six.
five or
Five or
six,
six,
five or
Which
six.
makes me feel like we wrote a pretty good RFP because we've
Yeah.
written
Yeah.
RFPs before
Right.
where we haven't gotten
Anything.
anything.
So
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
that is a good thing.
I will pull that up and look at
Okay,
it real
take a
quick
look.
while we're
Yeah, no, that's fine.
doing this.
Bill, oh, hey, Gary. Did either of you have a chance to review the RFP? I know, Bill, you weren't here when we did this 2.5 years ago. Did you have any thoughts or things that you'd like to see included in the RFP?
I did look at the RFP and it looked fine to me. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Gary, I
Yeah,
see you up there.
That's my feeling as well. As was just pointed out, you got good responses to the last one, so
Okay.
it looks good to me.
Okay, great. So I guess the next thing we need to do is kind of discuss a timeline of how we want to get this done. I was thinking, we're actually, we're going into the holiday season, that I'd like to get it posted fairly, like as soon as we can, but maybe have the deadline not be till mid to late January to give people some time after the holiday season.
Does it have to be done by May, right?
It has to be done, well, the fiscal year ends in March 31st. So ideally having someone in place by March 31st, but as we know from prior audits, the stuff doesn't come over from Luft until, what would you say, Sheena? Like early April? Sorry, late April, early May?
Yes, because they have tax season.
Right. So, so we have a little bit of give there. It doesn't have to be necessarily by the end of the fiscal year. Obviously, that would be ideal, but I was kind of thinking in my head about the time frame, and I was thinking of like a January 31st deadline with potentially us meeting early February once they all come in and we have a chance, maybe give us 2 weeks. I'll get them out to everybody, have a couple weeks to review, then have a meeting maybe the 3rd week of February to discuss and then decide who, if anyone, we're going to interview. Does that seem like a reasonable?
I think we
timeframe?
should be more aggressive.
More
versus
aggressive than
less.
that?
Well,
Oh, well,
I
yeah.
mean, then less aggressive because something's
Yeah.
going to happen somewhere in here, and getting it set up beforehand would be really helpful.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was kind of thinking. I'm like, we can all look at our schedules and actually go ahead and set, internally what we want to see, when we want to meet after, you know, let's just say, for example, that we did, okay, January 31st as a deadline for the, for the responses, then we're looking at, okay, let's see, we'd have a meeting the week of the 14th. That gives us 2 weeks to kind of review and have a chance to go over it. Have a meeting sometime that week. And then from that, we should be able to then contact whoever we want to interview so that we're setting up interviews, you know, the second week of March, the week of the 7th of March. Does that sound fairly reasonable?
Or sooner, yeah.
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 Because I think
it takes a while to get
well-
the contract in place.
Well, it does, but it also takes some time. I think, like, once we decide who we want to interview, let's say, it takes some time for me to reach out to those folks, you know, whoever their
Mhm.
representative is, to set up, you know, get us all on board for times that they're available, times that we're available, to meet with them. So I think that takes, like, we can't just say, okay, we're going to have our meeting and then, and say, decide
you
who we're
have to
going to
be
want to,
there.
and then say, oh, the next week we're going to do interviews. I think that's a little unrealistic given, you know, their schedules and the people that might bid. Does that make sense?
Are we gonna let Zoom as an option for people?
I don't have a problem with that. What are your all's thoughts about letting people Zoom in to
No,
do
yeah,
interview?
Right.
That way we meet
That makes it
probably
easier.
schedule easier.
yeah, I think
Makes-
Zoom
yeah.
would be fine. We
Yeah.
did it for 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that I would say, you know, this is different because it's a services contract and we're not hiring an individual. Because that was the one thing,
Yeah.
when we were interviewing for town manager, like the people that had to do it by Zoom, we were kind of like, well, I mean, they were good, but it's like, you're like, you kind of lose that when you, but I think this is different because it's a services
Right.
contract, we're not hiring that person per se, we're hiring the company and what they have to offer.
Do you think we could, I don't know if there's something in the bylaws that say we can't, but do you think we could make this a 3-year contract with a 2-year extension, so the total was 5 years? I mean, we went a long time without ever having an RFP for an audit company. I know
Right.
there were issues and things,
Right.
but now, I mean, 3 years is a very short period
It
of
is a
time
short
to
time.
keep writing RFPs and to get an auditor to really get a feel for who we are and what we're doing. And I just think 3 years is real short.
Short. I don't disagree with you. I mean, and I know, I guess, the reason we did it like that we did, because we knew obviously it was going to be somebody new. So you wanted to.
And we were
let them-
nervous
and we were-
because
yes.
we had, you know,
Right.
not the best experience before.
Right. Well, yeah, the end was kind of ugly.
I wasn't saying that. Yeah.
Well, and it wasn't, anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. Gary or Bill, is there any reason why we couldn't do a longer contract and do the RFP for a longer period of time? What are your thoughts?
There's nothing that occurs to me off the top of my head that would prevent us from doing that. But Bill, do you have any thoughts?
As long as we're able to get out of the contract, if we're not happy with the company.
Right.
Okay.
By going
Yeah.
with the option years.
The option, yeah,
That's-
Right, 3 with
the way.
2, with 2 ones maybe.
right. So there would be, it could be a total of a 5-year contract.
Right. And there's always a non-performance in the contract.
Right.
I mean, that's standard if it's the 3rd day
Right.
Yeah.
of a new contract.
Bill, do you like that idea of doing a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions?
I do, thanks.
Okay, great. Gary, how about you? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that works for me.
Okay. Okay, well then I'll go through the document and change the RFP to reflect that. 2 1-year? Or do we even do 2 2-year? Or is that too long? Like 3 years with 2 2-year extensions?
No.
Or is that too long? You need to do 1 year. Okay,
That's kind of
that's easier.
standard.
Okay.
Yeah, a total of 5
was
years,
just- I was
I
having
feel
my-
comfortable with.
Okay, yeah, no,
And
that's
then, yeah,
Mhm.
but as I said before, if after year 2, we don't want to, and they're not performing, we can
Right.
certainly
Definitely.
get out of the contract, because I think there's language in there.
Yeah,
I have to go back and look at it.
I know there is. So now timelines, right? What are your all's thought about the timeline? I'm kind of just spitball proposing, any thoughts about that? I just think this is a tough time of year to, when people are taking vacations and like,
Well, speaking as a former contractor, who's still a contractor,
right,
many of Thanksgiving, they ended up working that third Friday, and federal government particularly likes to dispense for us. That's just
That's
the way it
true.
is.
That's true.
So
Well,
I think people, if they want to work, that was, we had the similar conversation 3 years ago. If they want to work, they'll bid for it.
They'll make
If they
it.
don't want it,
They
okay,
won't.
fine, thank you.
Well, so maybe, okay, so now we're today's the 15th of November. We obviously have to finalize this.
If you
And
look at this, I mean, it's just, I'm a very visual person, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a couple
We do have
good
some
weeks.
time.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering maybe like January, well, like for that, the end of that Friday, what's the Friday, the first week of January? So the 3rd to the 7th. So maybe then,
The sooner, I mean, the faster we can always push it back,
right?
you know, if we don't do it. But if we aim aggressively, we might
Right.
be able to knock this out.
Well,
And
I-
again, if they want to work and do it, they
Right.
do it.
Well, and I was also thinking too about like, we need to get this finalized and then it needs to get posted and it needs to go to all the places that it
Right.
needs to go to. So I guess I was kind of building some of that
How long
in.
did it have to be posted before?
I don't know that, I can't
Was it
remember.
about a
if-
month?
I think it was at
30
least, I
days?
think we had it
We had
posted at
30 days,
least
didn't we?
30 days, if
Yeah.
I remember right. Gary, does that sound right to you? 30, that we had it posted for 30 days?
Yeah, I honestly do not know.
Okay. I don't know that there's any like rule, but
I think it was because we were running into that crunch at the
Yeah.
end.
We were
Because
yeah.
by the time they got it posted, it
Right.
was, something slipped up and
Yeah.
we had a
How
lot
many
of
years ago was that? 3?
crunch.
Yeah, it was the spring of,
May of 19.
yeah, May of,
Seven-
was, yeah, because here's the
19?
date, May 15th is when it was due.
2019.
Oh,
Right here,
19,
19.
19. Okay, May of 19. Just going back to
Going
see
back
what
through.
what we said about it.
So, but I feel like we had it posted for at least 30 days. Like, I feel like we had that meeting at the end of March
Mhm.
and had it for at least between 30 and 45 days is how long we had it
Mhm,
done.
mhm.
I could probably look at my minutes to know when that meeting was before it was due.
Mhm.
1919. So March 23rd was our meeting. And then we had another, and then we had our meeting right after, like, so it was due May 15th and we had our meeting May 18th
Mhm.
to discuss. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that sounds. So yeah,
Mhm.
so that January 7th, that Friday. And I'll try and get this, between Bernie and I will get this. I mean, because there's not a lot of changes to it. It's just gonna be the dates and the,
Yeah, and that's right in there, general information. so-
right, exactly. So that's pretty easy.
If
Yes.
I could ask, was there anything that you guys felt that these auditors did not do? And if so, should we put something in the RFP to make sure we have this qualification?
Given this was my first
Okay.
audit, I thought the current auditors were very patient with me and my team, and they did a very good job. So off the top of my head, I really don't know. So I'd have to refer to Gary or Sheena.
Okay.
Yeah, there's really nothing. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, there was really nothing from my perspective that they didn't do. I agree with Bill. I've been very happy with them over the last, I guess, 3 years it is. Julie had to remind me that the contract really was up and, we really did need to go through this process again. And I was just really surprised at that. I thought we had at least another year with this same group.
Yeah, it came up
But,
quick.
there's really
Well,
no-
because we were on a short year that
Right,
first year, so that's why it came up so quick.
right.
Sheena, any?
I found them very easy. They answered my questions, great patience.
And their skill set was everything we needed?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so we might not have to make many changes.
No, I don't think so.
We did
I
a
think
good
just-
job.
I know, right? Kudos. Let's pat ourselves on the back, guys.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think if we just add that piece that you're
Yeah.
talking about, Bernie, and we can,
Matter of fact, I'll do that tomorrow, 'cause I'll
Okay.
still be down here tomorrow,
Okay.
so I'll do it
Great.
before and send it to you.
and then I can hopefully get something. Today's only Monday, so hopefully I can get something to the town by the end of the week.
Yeah.
And post it in all the usual places that we did, because I think, like we said, we had good results. So if we can go back, maybe Kate, you and Ashley can go back and look at the places that we posted it 3 years ago to see, because that obviously the paper and, that stuff, but whatever websites that we used, I can't remember now. It's been, but I'm sure Ashley has a record. I'm sure she does.
We have to have any Q&A.
Time.
Can they have?
Oh, that's right. That's a good point. Because in fact, I was looking through my
Yeah.
documents and I saw where we gave them till so long to answer questions
Right.
and then we, answer the questions. Let me see when that was. That's a good point, Bernie, because that changes the timeline a little bit if we need to. But I feel like the Q&A was before they had the due date, right?
Right, yes, it
Yeah,
is.
so it's before the due date. So it doesn't really change. But does that change our timeline about when we want the response? Like, do we want to do another week later so that we have that first week of January to make sure those questions are answered? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Deb, thoughts about that?
I'm sorry, I was trying to see I was trying to find out if how long we posted it last time. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay. I was just saying, Bernie brought up a good point about having to have a Q&A where they have until whenever to submit questions.
Right.
And obviously we have to do that before the due date. So maybe pushing it back another week in January so that the questions have to be in by the 7th.
Yep.
And then the proposals have to be in a week once. we
Yeah,
get-
more aggressive, I think, is better.
Okay.
Like, again, some people are bored over Christmas.
That's true. There are those. I am not.
Yeah.
I go to Chicago every year.
Those auditors are boring anyway, right?
That's right.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. So yeah, so maybe let's shoot for that where we submit it and it's January 7th, but Q&A. Then do we need to give them 2 weeks or do we just give them a week? Once, I guess it depends on how quickly we turn the questions around, right?
We're cutting off all questions by the
By the
7th.
7th.
I know, again, having responded, Debbie's probably done the same thing. You should pay a strategy. There's a lot of time you don't want to ask some of the
Because you don't want to
questions
show your
because
cards.
you already know, and if you
Right.
ask a question, someone else might say, "Ooh, never thought about that."
Okay.
Right, right. And then the question is, what we really need is the people answering will be probably you
Yeah.
and town manager.
Yeah, Bill and
Carol
Gary
and Gary,
and
and because
Sheena.
we probably won't be answering them. So you guys have to have the time to be able to react to those questions
right.
if
So I
you're
would.
around and if you're not on vacation or that kind of thing.
I got all the time.
So I would say, I just, where was I had it, I saw it, I looked at it earlier today when I was printing my stuff, printing this out. That had, and I've written up all the questions and I had the blanks where I needed help,
Yeah.
to answer those questions. Oh, here it is, Beach Audit Services answers. So, well, here, what does it say? How much time did we give them? So
I thought we had a timeline in there.
proposals were due by the 15th.
Yep.
What does it say?
Now we had the question under inquiries. All questions must be submitted no later than May 8th.
Okay, so we gave them a week.
We'll give
Yeah,
them a week.
that's-
Okay. That seems reasonable. So then we'll answer the questions as quickly as we can and then they have until, if they're asking questions, they're clearly already starting to write their answers, right? Their responses. So that seems reasonable. So Q&A is January 7th, due January 14th. And then, so if they're due January 14th, let me put my calendar back up.
And the RFPs are due. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so then,
Yeah.
if they're due, if questions are due by January 7th, we can turn that around, due by the
Right.
14th, and
Right.
then we will plan on having a meeting that week of the 17th.
When is Martin Luther King Day?
That is the 17th.
17th, okay.
Mhm. So that's what I was just looking at. So sometime later that week, and that gives us kind of a long weekend to look it
Yeah.
over. So we'll plan on a meeting to discuss and then, figure we'll be hopefully doing interviews the first full week of February, the week of February 7th. So everybody write this down, week of the 17th to discuss. And then week of February 7th to hopefully interview.
Right.
Public line.
Is there any time, Bill, I mean, obviously you're kind of a passive part of this because we're the committee, but is there any of those dates that I've just been throwing out that are difficult for you to kind of try to work around? Or Gary, for that matter?
Not for me.
Okay, Gary,
Not for me either.
okay, so that time frame looks good for both of you?
Yep.
Because then if we can, do that, then I think we're in good shape to have somebody on board and a contract signed, early to mid-March before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the earlier the better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
I
agree.
agree.
And especially if, we go with somebody new. That's definitely something that we need to consider. Okay. So is there anything else we need to discuss with regard to the RFP? Anything else? Any thoughts? Okay. And then, we have such a big public. Does anybody have any public comments?
Julie,
Before I close it. Yes, Gary.
one very minor thing. When the town council, the commissioners met last month, and we reauthorized the chairs and the staffing for all the committees, we agreed to go back and to review and revise as necessary the descriptions that we have for each of the committees.
Okay.
And I went back and I took a look at the audit committee description, and I thought it needed a few changes. So it
Okay.
hasn't been approved finally yet, but I think at some point it will show up. One of the things I did was just to take out any reference to replacing the auditor for the 2019 audit.
Right.
But I think you've accomplished that.
I think so.
But the other changes I made were really just to stick very, very close to the language that's in the town charter. It has
Okay.
all the responsibilities there, and I think there was there was a little bit of a misstatement in the earlier description, but with sticking close to the charter, I think it's very accurate now. So you'll see that in the future.
Okay, I'll have to I can't say that I've read that since I took this position over 3 years ago, so I'll have to check that out. I'm not doing anything wrong, am I, Gary?
Well, everybody should read it because there'll be a test at the next meeting.
I know, I'm teasing. Yeah, we should. I read it, like I said, when I took this position over, but I haven't read
Talked
it.
about, is there any oversight other than just picking the auditor and, sort of blessing the audit? Is there
Right.
anything that we can do during the
During it,
year
Right.
in an oversight capacity, or should we be doing? So we should probably look.
I think, yeah, I think we've tried to be a little bit proactive with looking at the IT stuff and looking at, the employee handbook. We've tried to at least be a little bit involved, but
Yeah.
maybe we haven't been quite as involved as we should or need to be, Gina.
Oh, we'd be fine.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, anybody have any other comments? Okay, well, I like the timeline. I think it's good. It gets us in a good place for the end of the fiscal year. And on that note, if nobody has anything else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Thank you.
A
Bernie.
second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, thanks, guys.